G'day, it's Rob here again. Well, everything wears out eventually, as my old man used to say, and that's exactly what's happened with my 3-jaw scroll chuck that came with my Chinese 10-inch swing lathe 20 years ago. It's done so much work, the brand name's worn off of it, and it's got to the point where there's so much slop in the jaws I can't do anything with it. It's basically a throwaway because, 10 years ago I reground the jaws, got it back to 0.02. When I got out the box originally it was spinning at 0.02, so it was damn accurate. It's a Chinese chuck but very well made, very good quality. Anyway, now it's out to 0.08 and I tried to do a regrind on the jaws yesterday and you can't. It's beyond help because it's not just the jaw faces that are worn, it's the grooves, the tracks that it runs in, and you can physically rock the jaws in and out on the tracking, you know. So everything's probably worn, probably the scroll plate's worn as well. Well, I know it was giving different readings and different diameter positions, and she basically had her day, and when you tighten it up it would basically be tighter at the back than at the front. I tried grinding it out and I couldn't because, yeah, you know, it's just, the whole thing's just tilting too much, so she's stuffed. But geez, I've had my money's worth out of this. It's been a fantastic chuck. And it's a, what's known as a K11 130. Now 130 is the diameter of the body. K11 is the type of chuck. And this particular size is a little bit uncommon because it has a 100mm spigot or alignment referencing hole on the back, and they're not as easy to find as you think they would be. And mine's a rear mount chuck, as you can see, and I hunted around trying to find a 130 in rear mount. Just, you know, and I wanted good quality, I didn't want crap. I've seen so many crappy chucks that's just ridiculous, you know, coming out of China and being sold, and they're cheap, but they're cheap for a reason, they're garbage. And I bought a few years ago, quite a few years ago, for the Shawblin, and it was the, now Feuerta is supposed to be a good name brand, and it was the greatest heap of junk I've ever seen in my life. It was so bad I took it back and got a refund because, you know, the pinion gears were jumping teeth on the scroll plate. That's how much slop there was in the pinions. It was absolutely disgusting. And Feuerta had recently stopped machining their chucks in Europe and were now getting them made in China, and they were just terrible. Anyway, so, you know, Feuerta was bad news. They might have improved the game now, they'd want to, because that was way off. And then you see the Sanu chucks. Well, you see reviews on them. I could have reviewed countless Sanu chucks through Banggood, but I didn't bother because I'd seen the other reviews and they all said the same thing. They were all ultimately able to get some sort of accuracy out of them, but they were full of burrs and, you know, machining crap inside, and, you know, I mean, I don't want to go to all that trouble with stoning up bloody scroll plates and stuff like this. It should be right to begin with. So anyway, cut to the chase. I looked around, and the only thing that I could see that was not going to break the bank was Vertex, and Vertex was $190 Australian, which I thought was reasonable. That's not too bad. It's about twice the price, more than twice the price you'd pay for a Sanu or something like that. And I was prepared to pay that if it's going to be a good unit. And yes, I paid for this out of my own cold hard cash, Had to bloody evacuate the moths out the wallet, but I got it out there, put down my money, and I'll show you what it looks like, and I'll show you how good it is. So here it is, and I'm not getting anything from Vertex for showing you this or the company. This is just purely information, you know, that I'm supplying, and it's a nicely made chuck. I couldn't find anything wrong with it. There's no slop in the pinions. If you ever buy a chuck, check that. Slop in the pinions, that's a bad sign. And that was what I had with the Fiorda, in a bad, big way. It was terrible. And then, of course, you check to see if there's any slop in the jaws. I mean, a little bit of in and out doesn't really matter. That's just a, you know, engagement with the scroll plate. But you don't want any rocking movement, you know. You shouldn't be able to rock it in or out. And there she is. So, now this is a front mount or a rear mount chuck. It's good, you can do both. So what's accuracy like? I'll show you. So how accurate is it? Let's just try it and see. Pretty good, 0.01, 0.02. Bring it out. Pretty consistent. I don't think you can complain about that. So yeah, I'm totally happy with that. That's good. Now I didn't get that in every position. You've got 3 positions, remember. You can rotate your chuck. So when you get a new chuck, before you reference it to your backing plate, try it in each of the 3 positions. This was the best and the worst was 0.05. So always try the 3, and out of those 1 will be better than the other, because you'll always get errors and things, and so you kind of compensate those errors as much as possible. And the alternative is you're going to compound them, make them worse by stacking the errors. So in this case, we've basically offset one error against the other. Got a damn good reading. There you go. Just a short video to show what I've been up to, and yeah, the old CQ 9325 lives to fight another day with a decent chuck. I mean, you've got to have a scroll chuck. I mean, 4 jaws are great, but scroll chucks are quick and easy to use. So what I'll do now is I'll put a centre punch on here along with my reference mark there. I've got other marks on here as well, but they're for indexing. So that double one's my reference. So when you take the chuck off, you can always put it back in the same position. Plus, when you put it back on, if you line up the reference mark with the chuck and the plate, it means that your bolts are going to align with their holes. So in other words, you're rotating the chuck trying to find where the holes are on the back. So you can't go wrong doing this. So I'll just centre punch that, and then I'll probably centre punch the jaws, number them, 1, 2, whatever, and that way it saves trying to read the back of the jaws. So yeah, we'll do all that. But overall, yeah, it's not a bad unit. On the front, it's got an oil port there, so you can pump a bit of oil into the scroll plate. I personally wouldn't use that, because too much oil on the chucks is going to mean it's going to spray out everywhere. So the only time I oil chucks is when I disassemble them to wash them out, give them a clean. Particularly if you've ever been doing grinding on a lathe, you always want to wash your chuck out afterwards. And I mean, that old chuck did 20 years, so I had my money's worth out of it, and had done a lot of grinding and hard work. So yeah, but cleanliness, is next to what I say, godliness. So yeah, there you go. It also spins nice and smoothly. This is what you want. so it's obviously balanced pretty well. In the box you get 3 external jaws as you'd expect. You get an Allen key for the mounting bolts. You get front mount bolts that go fully through the chuck body. And you get rear mount, which are basically, they're all cap heads. Well, you're better off with a standard hexi head for rear mount because you've got limited space. So, you know, trying to get a cap head and the wrench in there is going to be just about impossible. So, you know, the rear mount ones are a bit of a waste of time. But anyway, they do give them to you, and they're good quality, high tensile. Chuck key is not a bad key. It's smaller square section than what I use on my other chucks, but anyway, it won't matter. And it's got a spring on there, safety spring on there to keep the safety Nazis happy, which I've taken off because they're a damn nuisance. But anyway, they do it for good reason, I suppose. But it's frustrating trying to use it with that spring pushing the key out all the time. All right, well there you have it. If you want to spend $200, well, you can do a lot worse, I think. And you know, having used a bit of Vertex stuff in the past, dividing head and that, quality's been pretty good, I think, for the money. And yeah, I'm quite pleased so far anyway. All right, that's it. See you next time. Cheers.